Welcome to the chip market, where we help you invest smarter in the world of semiconductors. Today, we are breaking down what might just be one of the most important deals in the AI space, the massive partnership between AMD and OpenAI. And let me tell you, this is not your typical supply agreement. It's a bold, strategic play that could seriously shake up the entire AI hardware market. We're going to get into the unique structure, the money, and what this really means for AMD's fight to compete with Nvidia.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll start with the big picture, the AI compute arms race. Then we'll decode the nuts and bolts of the deal itself. From there, we'll weigh the potential revenue against the risks. Then we'll look at the strategic chessboard and how this move positions AMD against Nvidia. And we'll wrap up with a checklist of what you, as an investor, should be watching. All right, first things first. To really get why this deal is so significant, you have to understand the world it was born into. We are in the middle of an unprecedented arms race for AI computing power. The demand isn't just growing, it's exploding. It's absolutely insatiable. And for years, really, this has been the multi-billion-dollar question in the chip market. Nvidia, with its CUDA software, has built this incredible fortress around its business, a near monopoly in AI. So for any company to have a shot, they need more than just a powerful chip. They need a real, credible way to break through that software wall. And just to give you a sense of the sheer scale we're talking about, OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman, has said they'll need something like 250 gigawatts of compute power by 2033. That number is just staggering. It highlights this urgent, desperate need for more suppliers and for real alternatives to Nvidia. Honestly, it's way too much demand for any one company to handle.
So, with that insane pressure cooker of a market, how did this deal actually come together? Well, the structure is really clever. It's not your standard customer-supplier contract, and for any investor, understanding these unique mechanics is absolutely critical.
Okay, let's be crystal clear about what this is, and just as importantly, what it is not. This is not OpenAI writing a check to buy a chunk of AMD. It's not a simple cash investment. What it is a long-term supply deal for a whole lot of GPUs, but with a really creative twist, a performance-based warrant. Think of it as an option for OpenAI to get a piece of the company, but only if they hit some very ambitious goals.
So the foundation here is a massive hardware commitment. OpenAI is planning to deploy up to 6 gigawatts of AMD's AI chips, kicking off with the MI450 in late 2026. And this isn't just a one-and-done deal. We're talking about a multi-generational partnership. This means OpenAI's engineers will be working closely with AMD, helping to shape their future roadmaps to make sure the next chips are perfectly tuned for the next generation of AI models.
Now, to really get the incentive for OpenAI, you have to understand this key financial tool, the warrant. It basically gives OpenAI the right to buy AMD stock at a pre-agreed, very low price. But, and this is the key part, only after they've held up their end of the bargain by buying and deploying a ton of GPUs. It's a really powerful motivator. And this timeline is where you see how beautifully this aligns everyone's interests. OpenAI only gets its equity reward if it buys the GPUs and AMD's stock performs well. It's structured in stages, or tranches. The first piece vests after that initial 1 gigawatt deployment, and it scales up from there. But the biggest, most valuable chunks, they only unlock if AMD's stock price hits some seriously ambitious targets, with some reports saying as high as $600 a share. Basically, for this to fully pay off, both companies have to execute perfectly. Okay, so now that we know how the deal is structured, we can start to run the numbers and look at the financial impact. On one side, you have this huge potential revenue stream for AMD. On the other, you have the risk of giving away a piece of the company. Let's really dig into both sides of that coin.
Let's game out a few scenarios. In a conservative, bear case scenario, say they run into some problems and only deploy a couple of gigawatts. AMD could still bring in over $5 billion. Not bad. Our base case, where they fulfill most of the deal, is probably in the $20 to $25 billion range. But in a true bull case, where AMD delivers all 6 gigawatts, and this massive win helps them land other big customers, the total revenue could blow past $100 billion. A number like that would completely change the company as we know it.
Now, this is crucial. AMD's management is on record saying this deal will be very profitable. Even if they have to be aggressive on price, the gross margins on these top-tier AI chips are expected to be in that juicy 50 to 60% range. And that means the deal should be highly accretive to earnings per share, which is their way of saying, don't worry, the profits will more than make up for the potential dilution. And this right here illustrates the core trade-off for any investor. You hear the word dilution, and it can sound a little scary, right? A fully vested warrant could mean about 10% dilution for existing shareholders. But the idea here is that the massive amount of new profit from this deal is going to make the entire earnings pie so much bigger that your slice of the pie, your earnings per share, should still go up a lot. The thesis is simple. 90% of a giant pie is a whole lot better than 100% of the much smaller pie AMD would have without this deal. Okay, let's zoom out from the spreadsheets for a minute, because beyond the financials, this partnership is a massive strategic move. It fundamentally repositions AMD on the AI chessboard, throwing down a direct challenge to Nvidia's long-standing reign. And you don't have to just take my word for it. This quote from AMD's Forrest Norrod says it all. They don't see this as just another big sale. They see it as a transformative moment, one that elevates AMD from just another company trying to compete to a primary strategic partner for the most important AI lab in the world. But here's the thing. The ultimate success of this entire venture comes down to one word: software. For a long time, this has been AMD's Achilles heel. But now, with OpenAI completely on board, you're going to have some of the best engineers in the world working side by side with AMD to optimize their ROCm software. This kind of massive at-scale deployment might just be the thing that finally turns ROCm into a legitimate open-source alternative to CUDA, and that could break open the entire market. So what's the big takeaway here? AMD is no longer on the outside looking in. They now have their hardware validated by arguably the most demanding AI customer on the planet. This makes them the clear number 2 choice for anyone looking for an alternative to Nvidia. This win is a huge reference point to attract other big customers, and it also strengthens their critical ties with Microsoft Azure. The entire strategic landscape has just shifted. So, if you're an investor, remember this. The announcement is just the starting gun. The story is fantastic, but now it's all about execution. There are very specific milestones you need to watch that will tell you whether this incredibly ambitious plan is actually on track. Here's your checklist. Number 1, MI450 performance. Keep an eye on delivery timelines and performance benchmarks for that first deployment in 2026. 2, ROCm readiness. Watch for official support in major AI software frameworks. How is it maturing? 3, supply chain. Listen for any news on key parts like HBM memory or packaging. 4, new customers. Any other big names signing on will be a huge sign that the ripple effect is real. And finally, number 5, warrant vesting. When you see those official announcements that a tranche has vested, that is the most concrete proof you can get that this plan is working. You know, this deal is a paradigm-shifting opportunity for AMD. It catapults them right into the top tier of AI hardware. But at the same time, it comes with enormous execution risk, and you can bet it guarantees an all-out competitive response from Nvidia. Which leaves us with the critical question we'll be watching for the next few years: has AMD truly secured its future in AI, or has it just raised the stakes in what is already the highest risk, highest reward game in all of technology? Thanks for joining us here at the Chip Market. To keep investing smarter, go ahead and like this analysis, share it, and of course, subscribe for all our ongoing coverage of the semiconductor industry.